it's uncomfortable to learn new things. It's uncomfortable to bare your chest and
it hurts
and try. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because failures, I mean, we've got shirts, HDG shirts that say make many mistakes, but get shit done. Like, we know we're all going to fail. We know that there are going to be hurdles. It's how we deal with those hurdles and how we let them affect our attitude.
What if your biggest setbacks were actually setting you up for the life you were meant to build? Today, I sit down with Josh Hissong, designer, restaurant owner, and co-founder of HDG Architecture, to talk about the long road to personal growth, leadership, and finding purpose. From battling addiction in his early 20s to building some of the Inland Northwest's most iconic spaces, Josh's journey is proof that reinvention takes courage, community, and a relentless commitment to growth. This conversation is full of heart, honesty, and hard-earned wisdom, only on Navigating Now. Josh, thanks for coming in today and being like on that side of the table, because I know you have your own podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm stoked to be here.
Well, this is excellent. And obviously we're in a new studio because you used to be over at the Spokecast over on Main.
The Main Street one, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to throw Brendan under the street or under the bus, but do you enjoy this location more?
I do like this. This feels a little more, I'm not going to say professional, but more professional.
Okay, I'll agree with you that it is more professional to our audience. It does. And it's, I don't know, the logistics, and it just looks...
It's got a good vibe.
It does have a good vibe. I love that.
Good lighting. And we just love seeing Brennan.
For the he's in the other room completely, and he's normally sitting at the table next to you. So that's awesome. Well, seriously, thank you for coming in, and I would love for you to kind of express to the audience, like the listeners, like what is kind of your background here in the Spokane area? And I know that you're a Post Falls native, but it's like, can you give people a little bit of your background?
Yeah, I currently own HDG Architecture, and then I'm a partner in HDG with Armando. I'm a partner in Stroom. I'm an owner of Nudo Ramen House. We have HDG Property Holdings. And I've also kind of was the catalyst for Faber, a big cabinet company in the Valley that we purchased years ago and built it up and sold it. Same thing with Propaganda Creative, one of the really amazing advertising and creative firms in town. Bought that in 2013, built it up, and Jason and Kyle now run that, and it's grown immensely. Think Tank, the escape rooms downtown.
Yeah.
We started those with Jeff and Jolene Sebeleski, and kind of same thing with catalyst of getting that going, and then we sold it to the managing partners. And so I like to say that my regular job is just running an architecture firm with a great group of people. But I think it's also, I really enjoy building things and making things better, and then letting the people that put the work in own them. So I don't know what you would call that, but that's my passion. My background is I grew up in Post Falls, Idaho, grew up in the 70s and 80s in Post Falls when it was like 2,000 people, so small town kid. I moved to Santa Barbara, tried to go to college in Santa Barbara, and dropped out to go work in Los Angeles.
Why did you drop out?
I just, school wasn't my thing. The ADD and my desire to be doing anything other than learning at that time was overpowering. And so...
But you weren't diagnosed at that time, right?
No, they didn't diagnose anybody with ADD.
I think you and I are about the same age. I'm not going to ask
49.
I'm 48.
Yeah,
okay.
1975. So I just couldn't sit in a room. I had to be doing something. So I got a job in LA, and then I went on to get a night job just so I could meet more people in Los Angeles at a restaurant, and found that I was really good at that. And they made me the manager of this really old Italian restaurant in Pasadena. And from there, I managed 3 or 4 restaurants in LA, moved back to Coeur d'Alene in 2001 to help open Bricks in Coeur d'Alene, which is now Honey on Sherman.
Okay.
Owned by Adam Hegstead now.
Did you always have like this appreciation of food? Because I mean, if you're
Not-
from Post Falls,
not
so we didn't
really,
have
no.
great restaurants in Post
No,
Falls.
so-
We had the Paul Bunyan burger, I guess. But
That was pretty good.
yeah.
Yeah, Carrie Ovanik and her family owned that. But food was not my thing.
Okay, so
was
you're
my
down in it.
thing
Yeah, what is your thing?
Was customer service. I loved serving people. I loved seeing people feel better after spending an hour and a half in a restaurant that I had control over how it was going to flow and who was going to wait on them. And it was just something that it clicked. And I was only 22, I think, 21, when I took over as GM of this place. And it was the first time they'd ever hired an outside of their family manager. So it was the parents, then it was the two boys, and then me. And that was year 42 of it being in business. And it stuck. I was good at it.
Did you start as like a host and then a waiter?
No,
and
I
then
started as a waiter, and that lasted, I want to say, 3 or 4 weeks. And they were like, "You work harder than anyone we've ever had. You have a really good understanding." And I hadn't really worked in restaurants much up to that point.
or
I mean,
in
my-
jobs. I mean, it's not
Yeah,
like you're
I
like
mean,
this experienced.
I had bussing tables
Yeah.
and washing dishes at Templin's Resort with a buddy of mine. We got jobs there during the summer when we were like 13, 14 years old. And I mean, that was really it.
What was the drive? Like, I mean, what caused you to be a better worker than the people
I felt
next
like
to
I
you?
fit in. And so I wanted to make sure that I kept the job. So I worked really hard. And when I say I felt like I fit in, maybe, and I don't know if my therapist can work on this with me, but I don't think I fit in really well with a lot of different groups as when I was growing up. I was a super incredible athlete. I was great at all these things, and but I never really fit in totally. And in this environment, I thrived. And so I did that for years, and subsequently was able to help design numerous restaurants that I was hired to run with the owners and the architect or the interior designer or whatever. And I found that I had a really big passion for that as well.
So you're jumping into the restaurant industry. You're finding something that you're really good at.
Yep.
And people are seeing that you are good, and
Yeah.
they're rewarding you for that.
Yeah.
And I wanted the audience to hear that, like, you fit in. Is it like you felt like you belonged? Like, was it the managers? Was it the owners? Was it the family that kind of made you
At Bona
feel
Corso's,
good?
it was the family.
Okay.
That family's incredible. I still stay in contact with Jimmy, the son that pretty much ran it. Just spoke to him after the Altadena fires in that Pasadena area 2 months, 3 months, 4 months ago.
Yeah.
But they were instrumental. But then also, I think the people, they were at that time.
The customers?
No, the people I worked
Okay.
with. They were either, actors that were doing their day job. So they were very fun and animated and energetic. And it was just back to like regular people. They were regular people. And so I fell in love with that. And
But you also started to see the experience that you were giving to the customer, for example, and
Yeah.
you were taking pride in that.
yes, yeah. There was, in fact, at 22, I got headhunted by this guy named Abbas, who owns Worldwide Produce in Southern California. He would, on his routes, if a restaurant was struggling, he'd buy it, go in and renovate, clean it up, write a new menu, flip it. And so he headhunted me, brought me over on Colorado Boulevard, where the Rose Parade is, to a place called Old Town Bakery. And we turned it into, at the time, I hate saying this out loud, but Old Town Bistro instead of bakery, which I'm not a fan of the bistro term. But we flipped that, renovated it, hired new staff, kept the ones that were there, retrained them to cook dinner menu versus just baking in the morning. And I remember at 22-ish, an article getting written in LA about the restaurant and the opening and my handling of the floor. It had a huge outdoor patio with like water feature and there was some drunk homeless guy that came rolling in and just kind of causing a bunch of problems. And I dealt with it really quickly and swiftly and without yelling, without dragging him out of there. He just was like great. And he turned around and walked out. And they wrote, despite his obvious youth, he was able to handle a very uncomfortable situation without making any. And at that moment, I was like, I really am pretty good at this. I'm good at making people feel good.
Not only de-escalating the situation, but like creating an experience that's memorable.
Yeah, just in general. And that was the first time that an article had been written with me in it. And I was like, that feels good. It makes me want to work harder.
Yeah.
And mind you, during this time, and I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit more, I was also fighting with, alcohol addiction and drug addiction and a lot of self-doubt, self-loathing, all the things that come with being young and not having any direction. So I started to have direction, but it was kind of an immediate success to that direction. Getting paid a lot of money, not having any bills, being able to afford to do whatever I wanted.
Sure. You weren't living paycheck to paycheck, and you weren't the actor who is like having to take that other job just to be able to follow that dream.
Missing shifts because I've got to go do a Tang commercial.
Yeah.
Or you know.
Did you ever take Tang and just eat it plain?
No, I haven't.
That's why you look the way you do, and I do.
Whatever. So I think that success gave me enough confidence to try and pursue that as a career. Mm-hmm. But at the time struggled huge with drugs and alcohol. And so subsequently I ended up bouncing from job to job. A boss ended up letting me go because of the alcoholism and sat me down. I mean, took like an hour out of his day. This is a guy worth billions. Mm-hmm. Took an hour out of his day to come to the restaurant and meet me and just be like, hey, you don't understand how much potential you have. I've been in this industry. I think at the time he was probably 50. Mm-hmm. And Worldwide Produce is a huge company. And said, if you don't clean up your shit, you're not going to have a good life. If you do, you can have an incredible life. And I still, at 23, I was like, yeah, whatever. I'm fine. I'm totally fine.
So you just kind of deflected it a little bit.
Yeah, and I didn't realize I was self-medicating.
Sure.
And not dealing with things I needed to deal with. And so I just continued on that path, came back up here, got this incredible job at Bricks, got to help design the building, and kind of was, again, a good stepping stone.
So you're still seeing success even though you're self-medicating. And
for sure.
And that's the hard thing, I think, with a lot of people, because if you do drink and you're hitting drugs or something like that, usually you take a hit and all of a sudden it's like you lose your job, but you're still seeing that success even though you're still self-medicating in that way.
Yeah, and that's
which is giving you a confidence, like, oh, I got this taken care of. And
part of the reason that I thought that I could just continue on that way because, well, I'm still successful. I still have a house. My relationships may be completely strained, but that's probably their fault, not mine, because I'm fine.
Yeah.
and that continued until I'm 33 years old. And at that point, after all of this success and failure, I remember my dad saying to me, who's like my biggest supporter, saying, are you not tired of starting over? Are you not tired of like having to completely start over every time your personality gets in the way, the whatever you're doing, the drugs, the alcohol gets in the way, you have to go start a new career because you burned a bridge over here. And I didn't recognize it kind of until that point. And so I went to rehab, and I went to a rehab in Yakima, Washington called Sundown Ranch.
Great
name. Amazing place. Safe. I felt safe from hurting myself, hurting other people. Didn't want to leave. Like I spent 30 days there, and at the graduation or whatever you want to call it, the last day, I remember you go up and you get this thing, and really only about 12 of us out of the 50 that I was kind of in with actually made it all the way through, because it wasn't a mandated thing. It was go get in your car and leave if you want to leave. or, leave your car parked there for 30 days and we promise you something will change in your life if you do this. So I stuck with it. And I remember thinking that's the first thing in my life at 33 years old that I've ever finished.
Completed.
Yeah. And so that not only felt good, but it also, for quite a while, it was like, okay, now's my chance. I've wasted all of these years. And that's the way I looked at it for probably 2 years was I've wasted all this time. I've got to do everything. And
you got to start over, like what your dad said, right?
Again.
But you were gaining all this experience and gaining this confidence, but at the same time, it's like you were always being broken back down.
Yeah.
What started the addictions? You said self-medicated, but it was like,
so I think,
is it the LA vibe? And it's like, oh, I got to stay up really late at night.
Growing up in Post Falls, we had a lot of like keggers, and I'm not blaming my parents, but they were very anti-alcohol. So during the chances that I got or that I was given to go and do something without them possibly being able to know, I would just overdo it.
Sure.
And I think there's a lot more to addiction than just what people think of it normally. You've things that happen to you as a kid or whatever
100%.
it is.
Yeah.
If you don't ever deal with that stuff, it makes it very easy to just numb yourself. And so that's what I did. I think I numbed myself from all of my failures, things that I didn't do that I should have done. I had like scholarships to go to University of Wisconsin at Stevens Point for running, Stanford. Athletic. And I had no interest in it. My parents divorced towards the end of my high school career. And that played a part in the self-medication because I didn't know what I had done wrong. And
isn't that funny that you take the blame? Because my parents did the same thing. I thought that it was my fault, and I thought I was going to counseling, and I thought it was to get my parents together.
Yeah,
like back together. I'm like, and no, that was a big hit for me. I was like, oh, it's not. It's just to make sure I'm okay.
Yes,
right.
And I think one of the things that hit me was the fact that they waited until my brother and I were pretty much done and out on our own to do it. Which meant they had stayed together and spent some of the best years of their lives together so that we would have parents married while we were growing up. To later find out that they really weren't happy. They just put on a smile every day and faked it. And so I felt guilty that they wasted years of their life, which, again, not your fault, not my fault. And at the end of the day, it's not my parents' fault either. So what I learned is there's really no one to blame for anything. You can try and blame yourself, but that never works. And blaming the other people around you is never a path to success. So I think at 33, I decided to own my life for the first time as an adult.
And so you
15 years late.
But think back about how awesome it would have been to go back those 15 years later and have the knowledge that you did. That's
Absolutely.
It's like playing pro baseball and being able to go back to
gosh.
high school and all of a sudden you can learn again. I want to go back really quick about you're in this environment in LA, you're learning the restaurant business, you're moving up, you have all these successes, and you didn't go to school for that.
No.
So it was like, what got you to learn this? Was this like you just found something and you're like, oh, I'm really interested in this topic? Or did you have mentors and people were like, Josh, you need to do this. Like, this is how you do it. Like,
so
who
the
helped
Bonacorso brothers, Nelson and Jimmy, were incredibly good at training me. They would stay at the end of the night and talk about the night, talk about what we did right, what we did wrong. And this is, by the time we opened the second location, they were doing $20,000 a night in sales, that's huge in the restaurant industry. And so there was a reason for them to sit down and make sure that I was aware of what they were happy with and what they weren't. And Jimmy especially, I connected with, and he was just a great mentor. And I had numerous mentors along the way that had trusted in me and saw my work ethic. That was the one thing I think I did have that most of the time allowed me to be kind of a jackass once in a while because my work ethic was ridiculous. I was there early.
You were loyal.
I stayed late. I was loyal. I remember at one point working 26 weeks straight, 90 to 100 hours a week at the restaurant without taking a day off. That's half a year.
What do you think your currency was? Was it money? Was it
no?
What was getting you
and
to?
I love
to
having
do that?
money. It's great, but I don't think currency's ever been my.
And I don't mean
driver.
financial. I don't mean currency financial, but it could be like your reward.
Monetary has never been my driver. My reward was a feeling of self-worth. I think that's always been part of the driver for me. And, you said it, I wasn't trained, I didn't go to school, so I've always had something to prove. And albeit in the restaurant industry or in the architectural and design industry, I always have had to work a little bit harder because I didn't spend 4 years at school learning about architecture. I had to teach myself, and I had to learn from the people that worked with me. And so, at the end of the day, we have people that apply like every day, people that send in their resumes, and a lot of people in their late 20s who are like, you know what, I love what you guys do, and I have a degree in computer science, and I hate it. I hate sitting and writing code. I hate doing what I'm doing. And I feel like I would be really good at what you do. What is the path forward? Now, obviously, I'm going to push them to an education.
Sure.
But numerous have, when I respond, they're like, well, what path did you take? And I'm like, I kind of came in the back door. I came in the back door and was like, I'm doing this. I'm going to hire and work with the right people that can train me and learn to utilize my ideas. So
I love that because I think that, and I don't want to speak for the youth now, but it's like when I did construction and it was like, I didn't go to learn about construction. I went and bought my own tools right when I got the job, and it blew my boss's minds. They're like, why is this kid doing this? It was because I wanted to learn. Yeah. And when I would do circles around the guys who potheads, let's call them, and this young kid who's doing construction, just like ripping it up and tearing it up. And I got a reward of like, when my bosses would not only give me a raise, it was like, I saw the finished product and I would see that the client that they had was happy with it, right? And here's this kid who's surrounded by adults, but I'm outperforming them. And that just drove me. And it wasn't monetary. It was just like, well, I was taking pride in it and I was learning all of these skills. And it sounds like that's kind of what you did too in the restaurant business.
Yeah, it was, I think that the driver for me was that end client, whether it's with the architecture firm or, bussing someone's table and bringing them water, making people happy and serving. That's my jam. I love it.
Do you? Well, you had mentioned like other people coming in and like doing, trying to get a job with you. Is that something that you try to bring on with your new hires? Like you're like, servant leadership or like giving back, or like, is that something that within your culture that you try to bring these people who might have an IT background, but they really kind of see a nugget in them. They're like, this guy has potential. This girl has potential.
We've tried 3 or 4 times over the years to bring people on that had no education. In fact, we have one this summer that will be graduating with a business degree from USF and in San Francisco, and she just has decided that she's interested in design, and her dad's a local business person. And so I was like, let's give her a shot. And she has roots here, so she has somewhere to stay during the summer. But I will say that we've hired a lot of people that are right out of school, and an architecture education is great. However, you don't learn anything super practical to just jump in and start working. So when we hire someone that's graduated, even with a master's degree, there are a lot of times where we have to spend up to 6 months teaching them just how to use the software.
Sure.
Because they're learning theory and history and things that are great when you're traveling and pointing out stuff that was built 600 years ago or 2,000 years ago, having an understanding of that design landscape. But when someone wants a house design, that doesn't matter. What matters is understanding how to use AutoCAD, Revit, SketchUp, the softwares that we use on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, we've hired people that we just have to teach, and they have to be willing to get gritty and work. And Stephen Hewitt, who was with us 9 years, he's now at Olson Kundig in Seattle. He didn't know how to really draw anything. But he was a worker, and he showed up 6 times in a 3 or 4 week period, just saying, "I want to work here." And I'm like, "I don't have a job for you. Like, go away, dude.
Yeah.
Stop coming in. Like, we're busy. We can't afford to hire you." And he finally came in and was like, "I'll work for free for 6 months." And I was like, "Your desk is there." and this is year 3 of being in business. And so it was a little more normal because we weren't making enough fees to even really cover anything but our rent and our computer software when we weren't hacking it. Did I say that out loud? Yeah, we did that for a while. And Stephen, he showed up at day 12, I think, of him coming into the office 7 days a week. I was like, "All right, here's your salary. Here's your schedule. Stop staying here until midnight every night. Get some rest. You're an employee." And he grew in our company and became a profit-sharing partner after 6 years, and was a driving force in our growth.
Well, I think that's fantastic because you not only gave somebody a chance, but maybe you kind of saw yourself in that position too. Like you took it upon yourself and you learned all these skills, and you see that through somebody else, and it's like to be able to give back to them, to be that mentor, it's got to be pretty rewarding too.
Yeah, that is a big part. And we were talking yesterday, Brennan and I, about some of the drivers for what makes me happy. And it's really working with everyone in our office and seeing them grow and seeing them succeed. And I love watching, like, I'll use Sierra as an example. The first time that Sierra presented to a client, and how she articulated her thoughts in how she came up with the design, and just watching people grow and be happy. And I'm sure a lot of people that own companies say this, but we have a really great work environment. But I think we really do. Like, you're so free to do whatever you need to do, however you want to do it. There's very little rigidity in our office. It's like we have deadlines, like, just be smart. And so I think that's why I love going to work, the people.
Well, I think, but you're also, what I'm hearing you say is that you're surrounded by people because you brought them in, and you've partnered with other people that are your culture, right? That understand you. And it's like you're making them feel like they belong, and you're kind of giving them the wings to fly off and be successful themselves.
Well, and what is it? Richard Branson said, train people to be able to work anywhere in the world, but treat them well enough to want to stay.
Do you know the Canlis brothers?
No.
They own Canlis over in Seattle.
Oh.
Or Will Guidara, he did the Unreasonable Hospitality.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And
I
they're
just
best
got that
friends.
book from a client. Was like, "Hey, this is how you made me feel."
Well, and that's exactly that's what I was going to talk about.
Richie from Real Life Church gave me that book. I don't know. I guess it's been a year, but yeah.
Well, Will is a great guy.
Yeah.
And his book, what I love about it is that he, in every industry, he explains it. Like, if you're in the construction industry, this is how you make your client feel special.
Yeah.
Heard, seen, and valued, like Brene Brown talks about. And it sounds to me like you do that not only with your homes that you build and your commercial properties that you build, but like within the restaurant industry. And it's like, I think you're being memorable, valuable, and then you're referable, right? And so all of these people are getting this experience, and that's what's growing you. But it's also reaching out to the people that are below you, that are working for you, and then you're giving them those wings. And it's like, that's what a great leader should be.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you're unique, is because you have this environment that people want to work. And that's what kind of the Canlis brothers talk about. It's like they bring on people that this isn't your final job. We want to know that you want to take this as a skill level or like a building block for you to then move on. And if you stick around, great.
Yeah.
But if you do stick around, it makes us all better, right? We all rise. And that's what it's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, I want everyone in our office to own part of our company and be the people that buy me out, because everyone that's there right now serves such an incredible purpose in their department. And honestly, the other thing is hiring people that are better than you. And they may not want to work as much as I'll want to work, but they are better at their jobs than I would be. And I think that's super important. And we do get, like, people are constantly trying to poach our people. And so we do have to make sure that they have a work-life balance, but they also have it better than they would somewhere else. And it's very, very small community.
In Spokane,
even though we work,
right?
Nationally, it's a small community in Spokane that do this, and people know which firms have what style. And I mentioned Uptick and Track, and we have to differentiate ourselves. Matthew, that owns Uptick, is an incredible human being, and really good friends with him. But we have the same price. We're always very close when we're bidding against each other. We both work really hard as a firm, but I answer my phone on Sunday 4 or 5 times. When we're busy, it could be 6 or 7 times. And the client is always like, "Oh, I just wanted to leave you a voicemail." And I'm like, "Well,
No,
you're
I'm
obviously
here.
concerned about something.
Yeah.
I don't want you spending the rest of the weekend having to wonder why the fence got pulled down at your site and taken away." Whatever the question that they have, if you're building a single family residence, a home or a cabin for yourself, it's probably the only thing you're thinking about outside of what you have to survive. If you were building a building for your company, that would probably take a lot of your focus. Whether you had a team in place to deal with it
100%.
or not, it's still going to take your focus away. And
Well,
so
yeah, if you're building a business, like just
Oh my
even if
God,
you're just
yeah.
online business
Yeah.
or anything, a podcast, yes, you're focused, and it is hard to have multitask on different things and where
so
your
if I
mind
can
goes.
spend an hour on Sunday and an hour on Saturday answering questions for people and not forcing them to spend the next 24 to 48 hours worrying about this question that most companies wouldn't respond to until 10 or 11 on Monday, that's how I'm differentiating myself and HDG as a firm. I don't expect my coworkers to answer their phone on a Sunday unless the building's burning down or something. But I am expected to, and I think that's how I've been able to differentiate us in every job that I've ever done.
Well, I think that's golden because you're going above and beyond, right? And you are putting the client first, and you're also alleviating that stress because you've been in that position.
Yeah.
And you can put yourself in your client's position and understand.
Totally.
And I think that's what you did when you were
Well, and-
in the restaurant business, and whether you were opening up different business, you're able to put yourself in their shoes.
And HDG exists because I was told when I pre-bought one of the Morgan lofts in downtown next to Dania. And at the time, it was an empty shell of a building, and they had these hand-sketched drawings of what it looked like. And the developer was also the architect, and the designer was the architect's wife. And I had no idea that they were anything beyond the realtors. I didn't know who they were.
Yeah.
And they're showing me this, and I was like, well, this is kind of shitty. Like, this is a loft. Like,
Yeah.
I've got exposed beams, and you guys are cladding it, and I was just talking shit. And so finally, Ron Wells was the guy, and he was like, well, if you don't like it, you can hire an architect to redo your unit. And it sounds like that's all we need to talk about today. And I was like, all right, okay, great. And so I left, and I already had a signed contract, and I'd already put my retainer down, so they couldn't boot me out. And I spent a couple weeks calling architecture firms in Spokane, or 5 days or whatever, and only heard back from one. And like physically,
Yeah.
I got a number from another one of 25,000 or something to just pick some finishes for the interior of this thing. And I was like, that's fucking ridiculous. So the second one that actually called me, he told me his price, and I was like, that seems high. I'm like, how much does your software cost? And he laughed at me and was like, oh, you'll never figure that out, And I was like, all right, well, it looks like I know what I'm doing this weekend. And hung up and reached out to a friend of mine that worked at the time for Chief Architect in Hayden Lake, which is a Sunset Magazine sponsored like home designer software that you could build a 3D model of your dream home. Reached out to her and was like, hey, can I get a copy? She's like, absolutely. I'll come by and kind of show you how to use it. And so I spent the next, 72 hours in this software designing my unit. And the next week, I called Wells and Associates or whatever and said, "Can I bring in my drawings?" And he was like, "Who did you get to do drawings in
So quickly?
4 days?" And I was like, "Well, I did it. It was way too expensive to hire someone else." I said, "Do I need a stamp on it?" And he said, "Well, no, the building has an overall stamp and you're just doing finishes. So you're good." And I was like, "All right, well, I'll be right down." Went down, showed it to him, and he was like, "Oh my God, well, can I hire you to do the main floor and design out a restaurant? Because we're trying to get, at the times, Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. He was trying to get them to occupy the main floor of that Morgan building." And I was like, "Sure, I know restaurants pretty well, so yeah, I'll do that." And I think I spent 16 hours and he paid me $6,000. And I was like, I know what I want to do.
Oh, I love that.
So that's how it started. And I already had.
This is how your second life starts, right? This is post 33. This is like after.
This was just pre 33.
Okay.
So I cleaned up my life about 2 years after I started designing, 2.5 years after I started designing, because I was starting to get recognition in local magazines for restaurant design work. Because post Ron Wells and the Morgan building, I got hired by SRE, who is a restaurant supply company who also design restaurants. I got hired by them. They actually paid me to go learn CAD software because that was kind of the go-to on these projects at the time. Right. Yeah. And we were incorporating our drawings into mechanical and electrical drawings, and so it made sense. So they paid me to learn, and I subsequently spent 3.5 years with them in kind of a not great environment for me, which was another part of the catalyst of leaving there and going and just changing my life.
But you were learning also.
I was learning. I spent hundreds of restaurants over a 3.5 year period because we didn't charge much to design.
Yeah.
And so everyone hired us. And then they would make their money off selling them all the restaurant equipment. So it was a great deal for Spokane Restaurant to have somebody driven and that would work an exorbitant amount of hours.
There's your table and your desk right there.
And so that's what started it.
I love that you were challenged by something and you were like, "Oh, if I don't want to pay that, I don't want to pay somebody to do that. I think I could do that," even though you had no background in it.
Yep.
And you just dove into it.
Well, but I did understand
you had a foundation.
Yeah, I understood design. Over the years working in the restaurant industry, I did so much research on, because when you're doing plans in 2D, you have to understand spatial relationships in 3D with what you're putting in the room. Like if you want to put a divider wall up, you have to understand what's above that and how you're going to get the light to transfer to both sides. And so there was a lot to it that I think most people that would just be doing layouts wouldn't think about, but I thought about. And having been in the restaurant industry, understanding that people don't want a shadow, a light hitting them in the back of the head and putting a shadow on their menu. And so I just kind of progressively started doing more and more in each project. And then Connie Nacarado, who owned Scratch, she actually gave me the reins and said, "You tell me what to do with everything." So I got to help her design the entire interior of Scratch, which at that time became the 3 weeks before you could get a reservation restaurant in Spokane. And
but you believed in yourself.
I did.
You believed that you could do it.
Yes.
If you spent a little more time than the average person, you could figure it out.
Well, and I think learning in the real world, you learn much more
faster.
Quickly. You definitely do.
So in Japan, I would advise anyone, if you ever wanted to learn a foreign language, is immerse yourself.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. Go and force yourself under those predicaments where it is scary and you feel awkward and you feel uncomfortable. Because to this date, I remember so many specific vocabulary words because I was forced in a position where I felt uncomfortable. And I do that with my kids. It's like, I'm like, if you want something from Starbucks, you go ask.
Yeah.
And force them to go up to the clerk or whoever's at the front counter, and it's like, make them ask because it makes them uncomfortable, but then they learn that confidence.
Being able to socialize. How old are your kids?
10 is my daughter, and then I have a 4-year-old son.
Okay. I have an 8-year-old, and so kind of right in between. And it's the same thing. When
we could have a dance off.
Yeah. I can dribble a soccer ball really well because of him.
Okay.
That's his jam. He is a soccer kid. But teaching kids at a young age to get outside their comfort zone is not that different than teaching you or I at our age, or ages, because you're younger than me. But teaching us how to do something. It's uncomfortable to learn new things. It's uncomfortable to bare your chest and
it hurts
and try. Yeah. Because failures, I mean, we've got shirts, HDG shirts that say make many mistakes, but get shit done. Like, we know we're all going to fail. We know that there are going to be hurdles. It's how we deal with those hurdles and how we let them affect our attitude, because that's another driving force in the hiring and in the firing at our company is your personality and your attitude. Like, I don't care if it's the best person in the world and they'll make me $1 million a year in profit. If they're a dick, I don't want to work with them. And I definitely don't want the people, making a third of what that person's making treated like crap because there's this person in here that just has a shit attitude.
Absolutely.
And pardon my language, but that's a big deal for us. I would rather train someone that has a good personality and is kind and lose money for however long I have to, because I know as a good person they're going to do their best.
Yeah. Well, and in the end they're going to produce for you because 100%. They're along they're on, you have your system or your process, and it's like you're bringing them along at the same time. And it's like, I think believing in other people, and you were given that belief from your mentors and even your dad.
Yeah.
That it's like, that's an overall theme of you, is like you're surrounded by people who believe in you, but also see your potential.
Yeah.
And even when you don't see it or you don't want to hear it, it's like to be able to be told those things over and over and over, that repetition really does kind of start to feed or start to seep in a little bit to give you that confidence to continue going. Do you do that do you treat like yours is a boy or girl? Do you have a boy or
a little boy?
A little boy.
Yeah, Luca.
Do you try to like teach Luca the same way that you would with your employees? Like, as a father, are you kind of like balancing that? Like, how do you want Luca to end up and pour all of this information and this knowledge that you've learned over your years to your son?
He's at an age right now where I'm teaching him less about the harsh realities of the world and more about just kindness. Like, I don't care if he is successful. I don't care what he does as long as he's happy and kind. And so we're working on just like, you don't go into the office without stopping and saying hello to everybody. He's grown up in our studio. And so when he comes in, he goes and he looks at, Armando or whatever and is like, hey, how are you? And he's been doing that since he was 3 or 4. And like,
I'm sure
that's
that
very
lights you
important
up.
to me.
Well, and
But I know there are going
to
to be those phases. Oh, it totally does. He's my everything. But there are going to be those phases where he's at that age, 12, 13, 14, whatever, where, drugs and alcohol and I'm going to be able to truly show him like, hey, here was my life and here it is today. This is why you get to go to Europe every year, Luca. This is why you get to spend a month in Portugal in August. Because of this.
And your
not
decisions,
because of
right.
This.
Yeah.
If this had continued, you would be living, very poorly. But I'll be able to have like real data to show him, So, yeah.
So with your employees and with everybody that you mentor now and you're trying to bring up, is it this culture that you just that is in your mind. I mean, you don't have a playbook. Like you just take it and you just know who you are, and you're obviously living the kindness too.
Yeah.
And I think that is so important in today's society and in our communities. It's like, it's not that hard to be nice to somebody.
It's so easy.
And it's not that hard to put somebody else in front of you.
Yep.
And just
totally.
and I love that you were like, oh, and he always waves and says, because that is knowing someone's name.
Yep.
And then actually connecting with them and making a real genuine connection with them is way different than just what can they do for me.
Yep.
And it's like to be able to teach that, and obviously you're doing that with your employees and with your partners, and it's like, that's what's bringing everybody up.
And I think at the end of the day, I do know that I own the company, but I also try and look at it as I'm just a coworker. So if I'm doing something wrong, you have to tell me. You have to be willing to call me out. And I think Olivia's very willing. I think some of the other employees have a hard time, but when someone's like, I heard you're so-and-so's boss, and I'm like, well, we're coworkers, yeah. And we do have pinch of hierarchy in the company, but if someone were to come in and just observe, I don't think that they would.
You would tell who's who.
I don't think they would be able to tell who owns the company.
But that's kind of your humility too, like your ability to be humble enough to be able to learn from other people, no matter what their backgrounds are or what language they speak or anything like that. But then you also hit on this about like where you're surrounded by people who are smarter than you.
Totally.
And I think that being able to recognize that is every one of us has stories and knowledge and experience that we can learn from. And we're not the best at everything. And it's like that's not being a humble thing. It's like a constant learning process.
Well, and hyper-focusing on what value you add. There are certain things within our firm where I'm not going to add value. So I'm not going to get in anyone's way that's doing that piece. And I think we call it staying in our lanes, because no matter what industry you're in, you're going to be great at one thing, not so great at another, and probably not good at all at another thing within that company. All of it is learned, right? We could learn any of those positions, but if it's not naturally part of what we excel at, it's going to take longer, be more frustrating. Now we're taking away from the energy we could be spending on the thing that we're incredible at. And that's what the last 2 years have been at HDG is we grew every single year. Like every year we were growing. We were able to upgrade everything that we were doing and how we did it and the softwares we were using. And then 2022 hit and we plummeted. And 23 hit and we didn't do great. And 24 hit and we didn't do great. And so we've been reacclimating how we do things. And it's brought to light deficiencies as well as things that were like, oh my God, I didn't realize you were so good at this. And I'll use Michael as an example. He was a headphones on, design, draw the building, start to finish. And he did it in a pretty timely manner, but we looked at what time he was really spending on it. Because we weren't
tracking it
we tracked it to a degree, but we never really cared if we went over on one and made money on another. At the end of the year, we always had profit. For whatever reason, we didn't have to plan out how to make profit. It just always happened after 2013. And so we had to look at what people were good at. Well, Michael, turns out, loves the bits and pieces and parts and pieces of every project and how to schedule them out. And so Michael and Danny have taken over what previously was a job position held by a COO that was a big, huge expense and amazing human being and great architect. But we just realized like this isn't a position we can have right now. We're having to rebuild from, I don't want to say scratch, but we were a big commercial architecture firm doing a lot of hospitality. Now we're kind of this niche, high-end residential for a very small portion of the planet, like that can afford to build the type of homes that we seem to be getting, and that have the style that the amount of clients that want just a glass box hanging off a cliff is pretty small.
Yeah.
But that's what we excel at. So we're rebuilding with all of our employees' best attributes being put on their plate only, versus forcing someone that's really great at designing the 3D model and picking proportions of materials and adjacencies and all those things.
Doing something they don't really enjoy or they're good at.
Them on CDs, which is just the boring two-dimensional drawings that the contractor has to have in the book of directions, essentially, that intertwine all the mechanical, electrical, structural, civil, landscape, all those things. If you're not good at that, let's not make you do that. Mm-hmm. Let's leave you in your sandbox that you play well in, and there are other people that just thrive on doing this. So we finally kind of separated all that stuff, and so we're reinventing ourselves again.
Well, you're adapting and you're moving, right? And it's like you're rolling with the challenges and the punches, and it's like you're not letting it stop you, but you're just finding another way around it. It might take a little longer or whatever, but you're finding that path, or you're creating your own path. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting that I always say this about like with speaking or something, is that I could speak on anything, right? Like I could speak on any topic, or it's like a buffet style, but if I want to hyper focus, that's where I excel. And so it's like a ramen shop, right? Like I could probably make enough Japanese dishes to be able to say, oh, I could have a Japanese restaurant, right? Yeah. But if you would go to a buffet for that. Yeah. But if you want a really good ramen house, hyper focus on that one thing that you're really good at.
Do what you're good at.
Yes.
And I've always said that about, it's funny, I've always said that about restaurants in this region and when Jing and I were doing Nudo originally, it was going to be like 5 ramen bowls, 8 yakitori, little skewers, and that's about it. That's all we were going to do. Mm-hmm. And as we got closer, we kept getting scared that it was going to be too much of a funnel if we didn't have chow mein. So we're like, okay, well, we'll put chow mein on the menu because at the time we owned Ginger, Wasabi, we owned other restaurants, and we know chow mein is what
sells.
In the Inland Northwest, people want chicken chow mein and they want a lot of it.
Okay.
Well, so we put that on, and then it just grew. But I've always said, no one in Spokane ever hyper-focuses on the one thing they're good at and just sells that. Like Felipe's in downtown LA. Beef dip. It's the best 130-year-old restaurant. All you can get is a beef dip. You can't change it. In-N-Out burger. Mm-hmm. You can get a single, a double, a triple, French fries, or one of 3 shakes. They're like, the owner, is one of the wealthiest women on the planet because they're doing one thing correctly. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to be the best at that one thing. And that's a cheeseburger, fries, and a shake. Mm-hmm. Whereas you go to Zips, and I love that Zips exists, and I think it's great. But you literally can order 700 different things. You go to a sushi restaurant.
I feel like that in some of the restaurants for sure. It's like, whoa, it's overwhelming.
I'm in a place that I can order a hand roll and some sashimi, but I also can order French toast sticks, I am in the wrong restaurant. I don't want to be there.
Right.
And I'm not going to name the restaurant, but they're like restaurants that try and appease everyone. And I think in business, focusing on what you do well and what you know is going to add value to that client and not anything else. And we turn down projects all the time because we're not going to add value. Yeah, I know you want to hire us, but it's not worth it for you to hire us when you don't need our creativity.
You're not the right fit.
Correct.
Right.
And being able to walk away from those projects and give them a recommendation of who is going to do better, it blows the mind of our clients. Like, you're going to give us another number of the owner of another architecture firm that can help us? Like, absolutely. Why wouldn't we? You came for help. That's my job to help you.
You're rising the sea, right?
Yeah.
And you're raising the sea. And it's the same thing as speaking. It's like, we need somebody who talks about overcoming marathons or the millennials. I'm like, well, that's not me. Like, that is not my niche, right? I can talk about this, but this person would help you more. And I think a lot of people don't realize that as a speaker, I'm not going to talk to every event every single year. It's like, and I can't hang on to it tight. It's like they'll bring in a new speaker to bring a new message.
Yeah.
And so why wouldn't I help that event planner and say,
Find
hey,
the right
after
person to
me,
replace them.
after me, you should talk to this person.
Yeah.
You should bring this guy in or this lady because they really hit on that. And it's like, we're just bringing it. We're bringing kindness to everybody, making them feel and shine, right? But at the same time, it's like, how awesome is it to give a great referral?
Yeah.
Because that will come back to me tenfold
100%.
as well.
And we spent at HDG, we spent the first probably 5 years doing many projects at such a low fee or for free so that people could have a good design, but we knew it would come back to us eventually. And it did. And we grew and well, why did you reach out to us? Well, we saw your ad in Spokane Coeur d'Alene Living, or we saw the news article about this project. And then I remembered that you guys did a coffee shop design for a friend of mine for $1,500 and every other bid was $10,000 and you did it because you wanted to help them get it open, and those things come back to you.
And it's word of mouth.
Yeah. You can't
buy that either.
No.
You cannot buy that.
There's no marketing budget better than dropping your fee and giving someone something they could not afford previously without that huge drop. And we do put marketing dollars towards projects all the time. Like so Michael or Danny or Olivia will say, God, the fee is $26,000. You know, the last project like this we did was $90,000. I'm like, well, yeah, but this person is going to pass it on.
Run with it.
They're going to run with it, and it's going to be a great project. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But
you believe in yourself. You believe that you're memorable
enough.
And you're valuable enough, right? That your product, your service is enough that it will become referable.
Yeah.
And I love that.
100%.
To change gears, what would be the hardest challenges for you currently or that you have experienced in your life that have brought you to where you are today?
Well, I think the biggest challenge in my life we already talked about, and that was something that was a crutch and a hindrance. The self-medicating is probably the worst thing that I've ever had to go through. Obviously, it didn't knock me down completely, but it hindered my growth emotionally, and from a career standpoint, I'd be in a completely different situation because a boss, the gentleman that had set me down and sat me down and said, you need to leave. You can't stay here anymore with your problem. You need to go get help. Gave me a severance and was like, use this, go use it. Well, he had also set up 30% profit sharing for me at this $10 million a year restaurant. And at 23, if I had stayed on that course and not let alcohol mess me up, I would be in a completely different situation. At 30, I would have been, a millionaire, 25, 30, and had the ability to stay in an industry that I had to kind of stay out of due to the fact that by the time I was 30 and I'm working with 22-year-old servers and 21-year-old servers that are going out every night, it wasn't the place for me to be. It didn't keep me from opening restaurants because I didn't have to engage as an owner with my coworkers, essentially. I could say it's 10, I've got to go home, I've got to be in my office at 7 tomorrow morning.
Well, and as a parent too, it's like funny because it's like, I have my son's soccer game today.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't it so strange?
He's not an excuse, but I love Luca as I don't go to events. I go home to be with my son at night. And I wouldn't be the dad that I am, and he wouldn't have the life he has if I had stayed in that. So that was the most challenging piece, was accepting who I am, how I got to where I am, and just making an informed decision based on 13, 14 years of shitty life that I was just never going to go back in that world.
Yeah.
And that's made me the success that I am today. And and the people around me, obviously.
It's almost like a cold turkey thing. It's like,
Yeah.
I was given not an ultimatum, but it's like through all of these little challenges and these failures that I had been hitting or missed opportunities,
Totally.
they start to add up, and all of a sudden it's like, now it's up to you to make this cold turkey decision.
Totally. And that was it. That was, and I was on a path. It wasn't going to be a happy ending. You know, I was at a path where I just had such a disdain for who I'd become, and that I was often praying for an overdose so I could just be done with being sad and sick. And so it was cold turkey, or your life is going to be horribly miserable, or you're going to die. One of the two. And I think that reality set in. The rebuilding comment from my dad, and just knowing that I didn't want to be around anymore was enough to change my life drastically. And then I've surrounded myself with people that are the right people, you know? And that's a huge part of it. Armando Hurtado, my business partner in pretty much everything but the restaurants, he's been a rock. He's very measured, very mellow. He's the tortoise. I'm the hare. And
That's a yin yang.
It is a yin and yang.
Yeah.
And I think with any relationship, whether it be a personal relationship with your wife or your husband or your business partner, whatever it is, there has to be a little yin and yang.
Well, and I love that people are like, well, it should be a 50-50. And it's like some days it needs to be 90 and 10.
100%.
Right? And vice versa. And it's 100%. Like, as long as you guys are both bringing each other up, or that's the secret sauce.
That is, and I don't know who I was watching an interview with. I feel like it was some actress who'd been married to her husband for 70 years or something. And she didn't bring it up exactly like that, but it was the same concept.
Yeah.
Like, there are days where I don't have the energy, and I need you to bring 30% extra energy. And it's so true. And it's apparent
and
every
if you
day.
did it alone, those 30% days, 70% is going out the door. You're losing business or whatever. And that is the I guess the benefit of having a team or a partner or a spouse that supports you, or kids that love you, right? And it's
100%.
like, I think it's golden. I want to put you on the spot, and I want you to be your dad, and I want you to tell Luca right now, what is the one thing that you would want him to know, that it's okay and not to be afraid of fear or rejection or that failure?
I think my dad would say, and he's said this to me, he would tell Luca, no matter what's happening in your life, no matter what successes or failure are occurring, never congratulate or berate yourself too much. And if you get up and you go and do what you're supposed to every single day, good things will eventually happen. And all of the sadness or all of the failures or all that stuff, it will always buff out. And I say that all the time as well. Something's going wrong in our office. I'm like, dude, that shit'll buff out. It's fine. We'll be fine. And you have to believe that. You have to believe that it will. And I think one thing that we do as a society these days that my dad will tell Luca, and I know he will tell him, is just get up and go to work, no matter what. Do that, whatever work is. If it's school, if it's practice, if it's a job, if
sport,
it's a relationship, get up and do your job that day. That's it.
Make your bed.
Yeah, make your bed.
Make your bed.
Love that. Yeah, I remember crying about that Navy, the admiral did that speech, and I watched it on a Delta flight. They had it in their on the television on the plane. It was something you could choose to watch, and I'm like, that's my dad. Like that's what my dad would say. That's so yeah,
that's
I love that. Get up and make your bed, and I do every single
So
morning.
do I.
I'm so regimented.
My wife does it first, or I'll do it.
It's like I have a schedule when I wake up at 5, and by 6 I'm doing this, and by 6:30 I'm back in the room making the bed, and jumping into wardrobe, and then it's the shower, like getting everything laid out, and those kind of things.
A successful routine.
It is a successful routine.
Yeah.
And I hate saying that because it feels odd to say, but those little things of just, okay, that's accomplished. I'm done with that. I can get the next thing done. I'm going to go do my stretch video, or I'm going to do whatever. And I'm like, do I need to do jump rope today? No, fuck. I've already done with the stretch. I might as well do it. I'll jump rope for a little while, and then and at the end of the day, you're walking out the door and you've done everything that you're supposed to do, and that just bleeds into your work life. Mm-hmm. And I sit down, and Olivia's like, okay, we've got this, and this, and
you can do it.
And I know I can do it. And the stuff at home I can do alone. I don't need her help. But at work, I know she's there. If I'm running 50%, she's running 50%, we're good. But if I'm running 30, she can immediately recognize, are you okay? Are you tired? What's going on?
And you need me to be 70.
And then she is 70.
Yes.
So it comes into, your partnerships, but also just coworkers feeding off each other. And I think one of the things that we've done, because you can sit next to somebody in a cubicle or even in an open office for 2 years and not know who that person is.
Yep.
So we, starting in 2015 or 16, we started taking everyone that works for the company, from the front desk person to myself,
You're
everybody
talk about
in between.
Europe, I hear. Okay.
Yeah. So we go to Europe and they get paid, doesn't count against their vacation. They cannot work. There's no laptops. There's no communication with clients or contractors or anyone else. If there's an emergency, myself or Armando deal with it. And then there's no rule. Like the only thing that you have to do is show up to the dinner at 7 p.m. at whatever restaurant we've chosen for the night. Other than that, you can, like, Michael's rented a scooter and driven to Positano. Armando's jumped on a boat and gone to Capri when we're all in Naples. Mm-hmm. And as long as you're home by 7, or to the hotel or wherever the designated meeting spot is, what we found down year 2 or 3, I started recognizing more collaboration on the shitty components of finishing a project. It's typically up to one person to compile all of the sets of drawings from all the different consultants and make sure everything's dialed in. What we found was, I'm going to use Noah and Steven. Steven would walk by Noah and see that he's stressed out. And now that Steven and Noah know each other and know their childhoods and their life story and what their struggles are and what they're good at and what they love, now Steven's stopping and saying, hey, dude, do you need help? Yeah, I cannot figure out what mechanical's thinking on how they're going to fit these ducts in here when we've got this element in the scene. Steven would stop and say, you know what? Put his backpack down and do a save as. I'll open it up on my computer. You work on that. I'll work on this. And there was collaboration that wasn't a scheduled collaboration. That wasn't.
It was just the right thing to do.
It was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And you build these relationships at work, but what's the depth behind them? I know so much about people's life stories now, having spent 13 hours walking the streets of Rome or walking the streets of London or whatever with them, with work being the absolute last thing on our minds. Mm-hmm. And it's brilliant, and it works, and we love it. And we did Mexico City last year, which was our first time in South America. Really first time not going to Europe. I'm not sure where we're going to go in the spring next year, but
Liberty Lake.
We've actually talked about doing Chicago, New York, or LA just because of the architectural significance of those cities. Uh-huh. But there's also something about being 9 hours ahead of everyone in our lives. So
you feel accomplished half day
you feel
already.
Like all day long,
yeah.
You're focused just on what you're doing in that moment, the here and now. And then you get home, and at 7 o'clock at night, you call your kids and your husband or your wife or your partner or whatever, and you talk to them while they're getting ready to go to work in the morning. And then we all go to dinner and go to bed, and it's a phenomenal team building
family experience.
Yeah,
that is well, and it's you're making that family.
Yeah,
and it where I want to say that it is, I think our audience has gotten so much out of our conversation because your journey and your path has been
just babbled.
No, you've been awesome. Where can people find out more about you and your podcast? If not now, then when? Like, how can people find you?
Me personally, I have an OnlyFans page, and it's Brennan just laughed. I do not have an OnlyFans page. HDG Architecture.
Neither do I.
Yeah, you probably could though. I've seen those arms.
Right.
HDG-architecture.com or studiohdg.com. You can find out a ton of information about the company, what we do, how we got from there to here. We have, our book that is available on our website. We've sold out about half of them.
And you gave me one too.
Yes,
thank you.
And it's just a great book about kind of the things we love, the things that we are inspired by, quotes that mean something to us.
I'm digging on the color scheme too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of matches mine over here. The red.
Oh shit.
And this, see, I was inspired by Darth Maul and Darth Vader, so I don't know what your inspiration is here.
Well, we do design, so we love black.
I love it.
Our building's black. And
it's beautiful.
Red and black is a great color scheme. It's fantastic. But
what about your podcast?
So if not now, when? You can look us up on the gram. Brennan, it is just if not now, when, right?
He's looking at both producers.
That is correct. You can find the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and
perfect.
And eventually
all the
YouTube.
platforms.
I thought about all of the other ways to look up the funny little clips, but Spotify, Apple. And
tell us about some local restaurants here. Where should we go that you're still influential?
Honestly, I think. Nudo, everybody knows Nudo. Those are the only ones that I still own. I owned part of Remedy. And
that is a fantastic ramen
And this
house.
is coming from someone that's lived in Japan.
Absolutely.
Went to college there and spent 3 years working. And so I take that as a huge compliment. But my favorite restaurants in Spokane are like, I have zero ownership in, and none of the ones that I love the most did we actually work on. Like Sorella, we didn't work on, and Wooden City, and
Wooden City's great. We went there the other day, actually. So it's a good environment. It's a great vibe. It's very Pinteresty, Seattle-esque.
Totally.
Yeah.
It has just this good buzz to it.
Yeah.
And their staff is trained incredibly well. So that's one of the more important things to me is like getting all three things right: the food, the atmosphere, and the service. And if you can hit all three, success is imminent. Yeah, it just really is. And I think a lot of restaurants hit two of those things and then fail. I love House of Brunch. There's kind of the same way. Always get really great service, consistent, incredibly good food, a good environment. They have a patio that's opening, I think a patio for like 30 to 40 people, maybe even 50, that we helped them design. That's opening up this spring for the first time, and that'll be really nice. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
for not only pouring your knowledge out and giving all of these gems to the listener, but also your experience. Yeah. And it's just like, it's been a pleasure to meet you, and I'm looking forward to building our relationship. And
likewise,
I want to meet Luca, and I'll introduce our kids. We might have a dance off
or a soccer game.
Okay, my daughter's a pretty avid soccer player.
He's he doesn't dance super well.
Either
I try very hard because I love music, and he's grown up on music. So
I can river dance something fierce.
I'm picturing it.
Thank you so much, Josh.
Thanks, Boo.
Thank you very much. You too.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to Navigating No. If this episode brings you value, or you know someone who could benefit from it, the best way to support the show is by sharing and subscribing. It's completely free and helps us reach more people. And if you have any questions, feedback, or guests you'd like me to interview, drop a comment while you're there. I'd love to hear from you. And most importantly, thank you for tuning in. And let's continue sharing optimism and positivity.